As you watch the following video, notice the peace we enjoy with fellow believers now, and just imagine the peace that we'll enjoy in paradise.
How would you feel during a long journey where you might meet wild animals and criminals along the road? Jehovah assured the returning exiles that they would return in safety and dwell in peace. In the spiritual paradise we enjoy right now, people who were once violent have learned to be humble, loving, and peaceable. Imagine the peace that will reign in God's new world. Where we can wander this beautiful globe, explore every corner, and admire the handiwork of the true God. With no fear. They will do no harm nor cause any ruin in all my holy mountain, says Jehovah.
As the video showed, people who were once violent have learned to be humble, loving, and peaceable. And how did you feel when you saw scenes in the video of humans so close to wild animals? Jehovah's promise of peace among humans and peace between humans and animals is thrilling.
Yeah, I'm really thrilled about that. Thank you, Leonard Myers. So we've just had another one of these montages, these segments narrated by Paul Gillies. It's interesting that so much of this footage at least appears to be third-party stock footage. How ironic if, because I don't know who's behind each and every video sequence, but how ironic if we're watching film that's been recorded by photographers or cinematographers who are supposed to die at Armageddon because they're not Jehovah's Witnesses. That really grates on me whenever I see their liberal use of stock footage in this sort of propaganda. I said earlier in this rebuttal that I had a few things to say on Paul Gillies, who I somewhat locked horns with during the ICSA proceedings, ICSA standing for the Independent Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse for England and Wales. I was a co-participant for said inquiry, as was the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, of whom Paul Gillies was a spokesperson. This was before he got promoted to governing body helper. So Paul Gillies is now, presumably because the governing body was so thrilled with his performance, Paul Gillies is now on the coordinators committee alongside John Ekron. It used to be only John Ekron on the coordinators committee. Now it's John Ekron and Paul Gillies. It turns my stomach to hear Paul Gillies narrate the following.
How would you feel during a long journey where you might meet wild animals and criminals along the road? Jehovah assured the returning exiles that they would return in safety and dwell in peace.
Paul Gillies, governing body helper, is narrating these words as somebody who for years has facilitated and covered up criminals. And I don't say those words lightly. That's the sort of thing that, if it weren't true, Paul Gillies could sue me for. I could get sued for defamation for saying what I've just said. Paul Gillies has for years facilitated and covered up criminals. And when I say criminals, I don't just mean thieves. I don't just mean people who assault people violently. I'm talking about child molesters.
When it comes to organizational procedures, if you're talking about helping people on a personal level, we try to help individuals to reason on Bible principles. So it's not as if elders give instructions as to how a person should live their lives. If a person's looking for guidance in the congregation, we educate our elders to understand the principles that are involved and to share those principles with individuals so that they can make good decisions in their life.
He's facilitated child molesters and covered them up for years. And here he is talking about criminals and how Jehovah protected his people from criminals in the past. I'm going to show you the witness statement of Paul Gillies, or part of the witness statement of Paul Gillies, that he submitted to the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse. If Tibor is gracious, we can see a quote from it. I, Paul Stuart Gillies, make the following statement on behalf of the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses of Britain. I have been an elder since 1981. I served for 12 years as a member of the branch committee of the Britain branch office of Jehovah's Witnesses until I was appointed in 2018 as the director of the Office of Public Information of the World Headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses, located in Warwick, New York, USA. Let's just pause for a moment. So 12 years he served on the branch committee of the Britain branch office, ending this 12-year period, ending in 2018. So fairly recently, 2018, have that year in mind. Prior to my appointment to the Britain branch committee, I was a member of the service department in the Britain branch of Jehovah's Witnesses. During my appointment to the branch committee, I have overseen the activity of the service department and later the legal department, each for a period of several years. I will say as follows, and then the statement continues. It's a very long statement. So I just want to establish, back up what I'm saying about Paul Gillies facilitating crime. We've learned here that Paul Gillies was on the branch committee of the Britain branch office up until 2018, when he got promoted to getting to share a building with the governing body as their PR person. And during his time on the branch committee, he had oversight of the service department and the legal department, which are the departments that deal with child sexual abuse. He had oversight of those departments. With that in mind, let's see what it says on page 23. Currently, there are 13,846 elders and 9,379 ministerial servants in England and Wales. In harmony with steps 1 and 2, paragraph 53 above, during the past 10 years, September 2009 to August 2019, the branch office was contacted by congregation elders who reported allegations of child sexual abuse concerning 25 elders, 32 ministerial servants, and 10 persons accused of committing child sexual abuse in an institutional context. For example, alleged abuse at a place of worship by a congregant or a non-witness in England and Wales. The following chart sets out how the allegations against those 67 persons were dealt with by the secular authorities and the congregation. And you'll notice in that chart that this really boils my blood, of this very small sampling of only elders and servants and further criteria that have been applied to make the number as small as possible. Of this small sampling of 67 accusations of abuse handled by the Britain branch, mostly over a period where Paul Gillies had oversight of the service department and legal department, of the 67 accused, you can see there in the table, it says reported to statutory authorities 37. So even in that small sampling, 30 individuals, 30 criminals, or alleged criminals, if we're being very precise, are at large in the community, have an opportunity to be with children during their worship as Jehovah's Witnesses. And the next paragraph reads, although there was no legal duty to report any of those 67 cases because they all occurred in England and Wales doesn't have mandatory reporting, reports were nonetheless made to the statutory authorities in 37 of those cases. Doesn't have anything to say about the 30 other cases. In most cases, the reports were made by the complainant's family with the support of the elders. With the support of the elders could mean anything. It could just mean that the elders didn't put them in any trouble or threaten them in any way. 2 of the 37 cases were reported to the statutory authorities by the elders because the complainant's family was reluctant to do so or had requested the assistance of the elders in making the report. So 67 accusations in what is, again, a very small sampling. I have projected using or extrapolated using the data from the Australian Royal Commission that in reality, if we go back to 1950, there should be at least 2,000 predators or accused pedophiles in the organisation. And he's managed to whittle it down to a number of only 67 for actual analysis by ICSA, and ICSA, to their shame, allowed Paul Gillies to pull this stunt. If you read the footnote 8, in addition, during the past 10 years, accusations of child sexual abuse that allegedly occurred 1 or more decades ago between 1953 and 2008 were made against 32 elders, 18 ministerial servants, and in an institutional context, meaning in a kingdom hall, 2 other persons. So he's explaining how he's further narrowed down the figures. So we don't know how many of these other individuals in the footnote are still at large. So all of this that I've just shown you is the reason why Paul Gillies cannot sue me for defamation, even though I have said and will continue to say that Paul Gillies, what's his full name? Paul Stuart Gillies, governing body helper to the coordinators committee, has for years facilitated and covered up crime, not just any crime, but the abuse of children. And he has the gall to read a script where he talks about Jehovah sparing people from criminals.